Good evening, friends and family, and thank you for coming to another night with Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities. And we have another very interesting and enlightening guest for you tonight, Larry Cherry. And there are many people in the community who know Larry Cherry, and many of you maybe have not met Larry Cherry, but he's been on our podcast before. And Larry is going to be talking to us tonight about some very interesting topics. And it's relating to our finances, it's related to our homes, it's related to taxes and and how we should be thinking about it. And I will say we are not financial advisors here. This is not a legal service information that we're providing here. This is educational analysis, a historical analysis of information from someone who I would say thinks out of the box. And so, Larry, I want you to thank you for taking time to be on our show tonight.
Thank you, Denise, for having the show and caring so much about the community. We celebrate you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And as you know, we're a nonprofit organization and we're working to enhance the awareness and circulation of dollars in our community. Uh, we're actually going to be asking Larry to say something about that as well. But from our perspective, we need to be supporting our Black businesses because our Black businesses are the entities that are going to be feeding back the support that we're giving them into our communities. And that's why we founded this organization. And that's what these podcasts are about that we bring to you every Wednesday night. We are great supporters of our bookstores and the Underground Bookstore at 1727 East 87th Street, who I believe is our oldest bookstore here now in Chicago, is our bookstore of the month. And we have a book giveaway where once a month we give a book to one of our lucky subscribers. All we ask is that you read the book. We ask if you can go and visit the bookstore and pick up the book. We pay for it. If you can't pick it up, we pay for the shipping. And our book of the month is The Abolition for the People, which was edited by Colin Kaepernick. And it's an essay of interviews and reflections from over 30 activists, organizers, and thinkers who challenged policing, prisons, and public safety. And we know who Colin Kaepernick was and what he did when he took a knee. I'm so sorry and so disappointed that many of these other football players did not stand with him. If we look in the past, we see our sports players standing together, our basketball players and our football players. And so it's very unfortunate that we have come to a time when they're too afraid to stand together. But he edited this book and we're giving this book away, and we do have a winner, and it is Christian Harris. You subscribe to our RGBC and you are the winner of this publication. And so we will be contacting you. We hope that you can visit the Underground Bookstore at 1727 East 87th and pick up your book. If not, then we will mail it to you free of charge. Like I said, all we ask is that you read it and you disseminate the information because reading is knowledge. And congratulations to you again, Christian Harris. Also, we are great supporters of the Southside Community Federal Credit Union that is located at 55th and Wentworth in the shopping mall. And they have been there for over 20 years. They are helping the community with checking accounts, saving accounts for individuals and for businesses. They have youth accounts, holiday vacation club. If you want to save money for your yearly vacation. They have a program for that. They have financial counseling, debt consolidation, bill payment. They have loans in lieu of these high interest payday loans, signature loans, and micro business loans, and credit building loans. In order for a financial institution like a bank to thrive, they need us to open up accounts. So please go to the Southside Community Federal Credit Union and open an account and support a business that is supporting our community. And that is the Southside Community Federal Credit Union. And then we also ask you to go to rrgbc.org, where you can make donations to our organization to help us with the work that we are doing. And we haven't mentioned, do not think we mentioned last week, but we also have the on change.org, where we're asking you to sign the petition because we want our bookstores to get some resources from our local government agencies, and that should be happening. So we're asking you to go to Save Black Bookstores Chicago at change.org and sign that petition. Thank you very much for listening to those announcements. And now we are going to get to our guests, Larry Cherry. Larry, I have known you over the years, and I know you have a unique level of understanding about finances and our institutions. And I'm going to let you, I have a number of questions to ask you, but I'm going to let you come out with an introduction, introduce yourself to our audience, and give a introduction to what it is that you want to talk to us about tonight.
Okay, I guess I'll start by giving a quick history of how I got in business. I'm 71 years old. I've been in Chicago my entire life. When I was 17, I was going to University of Illinois and I worked a part-time job. And in that part-time job, I worked for a trucking company in the office. And one day, a supervisor of another persuasion came to me and he says, "Make me some coffee, boy." And I looked at him, I stood up, I walked over to him, and I said, "If I make you some coffee, you will never drink it." Remember, I was 17. And then he says, "You're fired." And I said, "I will never," and this is what I told him, "I will never work for anybody else again." That was 54 years ago. And I started a women's apparel business out the trunk of my car and did that for almost 20 years. I had a store downtown in the Hyatt, a store on the west side in the Circle Court Shopping Center. And I dressed literally probably 40, 50,000 women during those years all over the country. I started traveling the country and going to New York and dressed many women. But I realized that I was a great salesperson and I decided to go into real estate. And so when I closed the store in 1988, that was, I became a real estate broker. I opened up a mortgage company, started a construction company, and I also did a lot of consulting. But then, even though it was going well, I knew something was wrong because I was working so hard. I was always working. And even though I was making decent money, I owned about 27 properties. I felt like I was an unpaid tax collector for the government, that I was a social worker because so many of my tenants were single mothers with children that didn't really have a man to guide them, right? And then I also felt like I was a construction manager and I was a drug counselor because there was so much drugs around the buildings and people knew them. And even some of the guys worked for me had drug problems. So I realized that something else needed to be done. So I had to take a much deeper look at what was really going on in the black community, not just here, but all over the country. And what I realized is that we really don't understand money. And I'm talking about even if you go to school for finance, they don't teach you the real truth about money. Even if you get a master or a doctor's degree and you go to Harvard or Yale, they don't teach you the truth about money. And what I'm talking about is something called monetary science. I hear a lot of very brilliant people, even black people talk, black authors talking about, but I never hear them talking about the heart of what is really going on with the money system, and that is that monetary science covers where money comes from, who creates money, and the laws that govern it. And when you start studying that, you see that a lot of it is just an idea in somebody's head that we accept it because there's all different forms of money. The fact that you have dollars in a pocket or anything like that, that's just one form of money. And once you understand what money really is, then you realize that you can get anything you want using other forms of money. And some of those other forms of money are called bartering or using your intellectual property or even coming up with like they use cryptocurrency. That's another form of money. So we don't have to be, the money system is not fair at all. And the main thing that makes it unfair is that interest is charged on every dollar. The only way money ever is created in this society through the Federal Reserve is somebody has to go in debt. Every dollar is borrowed into circulation. That means that there's always more interest owed than there is money available to pay it. And that's why the bottom 10 and 20% of people are always losing their homes, losing their cars, because there's not enough money even in print. And you can prove that because you can go to college and get a degree in the area and not be able to get a job in it because the money is not even there. It's not that companies don't want to have more people, they don't have the money to pay more people. So a lot of people go to college, get degrees, even advanced degrees, and can't find a job in their field because the money system controls everything. This is a game where the banks own and control everything. The banking system owns and controls not only the money system, most of all the real estate that has loans on it, but they own our senators, our presidents, our politicians, our mayors, everything. Everything is on controlled by the money system. And that really happened in 1933 when the Federal Reserve was created. The Federal Reserve is not a federal organization or agency. It's a private company owned by banks, and they get to control and tell us what the money system is and what the interest on everything is going to be. So the solution is for people to learn a lot more about money. So I'm writing a book, and the book is called Do You Know? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. It's not available yet. And what this book is going to prove to you from the first 2 or 3 pages is that even if you have a doctorate in finance, that you haven't learned the basics of what you need to know about money. And here's some of the basic questions that it asks. Do you know how to effectively plan your tax? Not just prepare them at the end of the year, get them prepared. How many people really have studied tax planning? And where is that really taught? And do you know how to reduce your income taxes by 20 to 100% by engaging in a business enterprise? There are millions of people of every race that are paying way more in taxes because they simply haven't set up a business out of their home. And so tax laws are not really for people who are wage earners. They're more advantageous to those who work a job. So how many people know that they can do that, file a Schedule C, and end up owing a lot less money and go back 3 years and get refunds for the business they're in? Because you're always in business, whether you're calling it that or not. Do you know how to invest in real estate with no money down and reduce your income taxes significantly with very little risk?
Can,
One of the
can I
best,
hold- can I stop you there 1 second?
yes,
You said we always are in business, but we
yes,
don't realize it.
absolutely.
Can you expound on that?
So the definition of business is that you engage in an enterprise for the purpose of making a profit. So even if you're working a job, you're not trying to earn less than what your bills are, even though that happens a lot. Your goal is that you're trying to make a profit. The fact that you haven't named your business and you're getting a salary doesn't mean you're not in business. Only thing that IRS, and they're not the gods, right? But their terminology is that you just got to be trying to be in business. You don't need a license. You don't even need a name. And that's true for that is if a person go out and start selling drugs and they don't have no license, which you can't get, right? And they don't have a name, they still can go to jail for tax evasion, right? So therefore, you You don't have to have a name or business. You just got to be trying to make a profit. And everybody is trying to make a profit. And as soon as you give it a name and file a Schedule C and write off the expenses that you incurred in trying it, you are a business. And that's it. And and you
So
can legally
people on regular everyday jobs uh,
absolutely can be
don't
yeah,
realize
right,
um, who and what they are in the scheme of this situation.
correct. Because it's the power to define. When you study law in depth, as I have, I've spent a lot of time studying law, you realize they're words, right? You can take a contract and change one word and change the entire meaning of the contract. You can take when it's that's why I explain that with taxes. When you say you're in business, then you are in business just because you say it. And if you keep your expenses and file a Schedule C, then you can write off your expenses. If you don't file a Schedule C, then you're going to pay a lot more in taxes. And you have a business expenses. Anything you're trying to do to make a profit is considered a business. And you're always trying to. You just have to name it and you have to claim it. Understand?
Okay.
Right. So the next thing is how many people go to school and learn how to invest in real estate? And even if you go and you don't have no money down, how do you actually get real estate with no money down? And how do you reduce your income taxes by doing it? So just those two things, starting a business and investing in real estate and learning how to do it no money down will put most people in a very good financial situation. Let's move on a little bit further. Do you know how to greatly reduce your property taxes? Even though we don't have time to go into all out, I just want people to think about it. But there are ways. People don't realize that all churches don't pay property taxes. If your home is a church, by definition of the church, then you don't have to pay property taxes. And if you are a spiritual person and you wake up every morning trying to make the world a better place and your family better and the people in your community better, you are a minister, right? And so the church and state are separate. If you say you're a minister, it's back to how you define yourself and you're doing your ministerial work, then whatever it is, it could be saving dogs. Then you have the right to go in and claim even the house you live in as a church. There are other ways to get rid of property taxes. All property taxes, by the way, are illegal. They don't teach you that in business school either. But I advise
Can you explain that, Larry?
because property taxes work by appraisals and it's really based on appraisal fraud. That money, really, most property tax, the money is going to school districts and it's going to pension money. And the school districts are appraisers are all working to overappraise houses for more than they're worth. And now the taxes charged on them more than they're worth. So it's a gigantic national appraisal fraud that's not going to stop until people wake up. You know, Frederick Douglass, Denise, said it best. Anytime you see injustice and oppression to that degree, there's apathy. Nobody's doing anything to us. We letting them do it. In the political climate we in, you see now that things have switched. This is not the America of old. This is not the. This is a place where they're taking it. We don't even have to go into all the stuff they're trying to take away. But you have to take care of yourself by learning and not depending on even just school. You need to have outside the box information like I'm giving you right now.
Well, when it comes to those property taxes, there's a big battle going on now where people are pushing back against the property tax system here in Illinois and saying that there's another way that they can acquire the dollars that they need to fund the schools and pensions, that they do not have to put this burden on the homeowners.
That's true. But let's go a little bit deeper even than that, Denise. When we study monetary science, once you start getting into it, you realize that there's no need for any taxes of any kind because all the money that's created is created through the Federal Reserve. So anything they want to pay for, they could just create. They don't have to tax the people. You see, so it's all a game. The government never needed tax. And most people don't know there were no income taxes till 1945. So it's all a thing. It's all a game to keep people in a place of being a wage slave. Because imagine if you didn't pay. You didn't have to pay property taxes, sales taxes, income taxes, and all the other taxes. How much more money most people have by the time they work 10, 20, 30 years. So the taxes just right. And then you're paying taxes on gas and taxes on this and taxes on that. So taxes and interest is all part of the monetary system and the banks, because all that money, every dime, by the way, that's spent is up in the hands of a bank. Every dime. So the banking system, which was used supposed to be just to help people facilitate transactions, is now become the king controller over the entire world. And we've let them do that. Even when you go all over Africa, how could Africa be broke when they have all the minerals, all the gold, all the everything? Because they allowed European and other countries to come in. They give them pieces of paper that they just make up on their printers and take out gold and everything else. And now that's changing, especially with Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso is waking up and they realize we don't want your money. We don't need your loans, right? The European countries, the ones that's always been poor. Africa has always been rich with minerals and all of that. Here's another question. Do you know how to pay off a 30-year mortgage in 7 to 11 years? How many people realize that if you took a 30-year mortgage, the principal and interest says $1,500, and you pay 20% more, which 20% of 1,500 is $300. If you pay the extra 300, you would pay off that mortgage in 15 years and save yourself over 100,000 in interest, depending on the amount of the loan. And if you took that same amount, that $1,800, and paid it every 2 weeks, you would take another 3.5 to 4 years off of it. Now you pay it off in you pay it off in 7 years and then 11 years, right? And there's other ways to get it down to nothing. But let's stop here for a minute since we're talking about monetary science. How many people realize that most mortgages are crooked, and almost all the foreclosures happened in 2008 to this day are illegal for a lot of reasons? Because the banks who were foreclosing did not actually own the mortgages. Who actually owns your mortgage that's sold on the secondary market is individual hundreds of investors all own a tiny part of your mortgage. So when they go and foreclose on your mortgage, they don't even own it. They just pretend like they do. Us not having the sophistication, we let it happen, and over 38 million properties, homes were foreclosed on in the 2000 to 2013. And it's getting ready to start. It started already again, and it's going to be more this time. And the reason why it's going to happen is what I just said earlier. What goes on is that the money they loan out, there's never enough money in circulation to pay the interest on all these loans. They'll make the loans, but they'll take back the car, repossessions by the millions. They'll take back the houses. You got a credit card, even though it's unsecured, they'll mess up your credit. That's the whipping boy. Think about let's take an 18-year-old who just graduated, Denise, and they get a credit card. You know they get credit cards in college, right? And they take out a $2,500 credit card, and they have a student loan for $20,000, $30,000, and they can't find a job right away. So then the credit card gets sold off. Now it's a closed account, right? Charged off, rather. And the student loan gets behind. Now this 18-year-old has terrible credit because he hadn't built no credit, or he or she, and now they have terrible credit. And that stays on their credit for 7 years if they don't know how to get it off, and many people don't. So now, even though when they start working, they still got bad credit because they can't pay the loan off, and they do have a program, if you know about it, to help you with the student loan. But that credit card is going to stay on there. And God forbid you get a car and then it goes on there, or something else happens, or a couple of credit cards. Now the person has 7 years if they don't know how to straighten out a poor credit, right? They can start rebuilding a little bit by little. But the credit, these laws that punish people for 7 years for not having enough money, because that's what it is. So now you're being punished from even being able to get money because you didn't have money. You see what I'm saying?
Let me ask you this question. Um, what legal structures within the mortgage lending that you would say disproportionately trap Black homeowners? You know, as far as the level of debt and then ultimately the foreclosure.
What type of loans you mean?
Yep. What type of legal structures within the lending institution themselves? Because it ends up happening
Mhm.
where Black people are disproportionately trapped into debt and trapped into foreclosures.
Well, the reason why we're disproportionately trapped because we didn't have much money in the first place. Most of us didn't have generational wealth in our families. We don't. Your average, the average person, a white family, they have uncles that make 150,000 and some that are millionaires and aunts that do this and all that. So they get behind on their mortgage. They can go get a 20,000, $30,000 loan right from their own family in many cases, right? Not all, but many can, right? So they got generational wealth built from, you know where that came from, mostly from us, from slavery and all of that. So they have generational wealth. We don't have that kind of backup for most people. So we get behind, we lose. But we should be not even taking out these loans. We should learn how to, and that's what I teach is people how to get home without having a mortgage or getting a very little mortgage. And yes, you can do it. Do you know that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of vacant houses all over the country? Over in the millions. Some of them mansions, and they're just sitting there because people don't know what to do and how to get them, right? But there's a way to do anything when you know how to do it. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So how many people know how to pass ownership on a property if you die without your inheritor paying probate taxes or any fees? You can file a simple land trust, and when you die or whoever automatically that property is in your name or your inheritor's name. They don't have to file anything. They don't have to have a lawyer. They don't have to pay $1 to anybody. Yet, many of us, where our properties are not in land trust, even though we paid a lawyer to teach us, the lawyer closed and didn't tell us you should close into a trust. By the way, trust law should be taught in grammar school. People
Mm.
don't realize that if you get behind and you owe the IRS, they can send out a notice of lien. A notice of lien, and IRS can take not only your paycheck, but your bank account, all of it. But if your bank account is in trust, which is one simple piece of paper, they can't touch it. We should put our cars in trust. We should put our houses in trust. We should put our bank accounts in trust. There is no financial good reason for having anything in your personal name. If you were, if you were to look on Cook County Recorder of Deeds or any county in the country and look up any famous person and put their name in, and they own I don't know how many properties. These basketball players and actors and entertainers, they use lawyers for the most part that would not leave them to be exposed like that. So when you look it up, all you're going to see, if you put their name in, you're not going to see anything. If you know where they live, you're going not going to even see what they own. You're going to see the land trust number such and such if you have the address. So that's just too much exposure. So there's over 50 good reasons to use land trust, but there's also revocable trust, living trusts, irrevocable trusts, and these trusts can protect you in many, many, many ways. When you go buy a car, people buy 30, $40,000 cars. The sales tax on that is $3,000 or $4,000. If you go register it in places, got that car in places that don't require that, like Montana, you don't have to pay any sales tax. Matter of fact, I've just helped a guy today. He bought a car. We set up a not-for-profit corporation from him. We put it in trust. So now he's getting his car registered in Montana, which is legal, and he doesn't only have to buy a license plate one time if the car is 11 years or older, and it was over 11 years, and he doesn't have to get any emission tests. Imagine that one license plate, no stickers that you ever have to get the rest of your life, no sales tax when you put the car in title, as long as you keep it in the same name, and no emission testing. And for him to do that, it only costs a total with the license plate, the not for profit, and the it's about $200. Right. So I'm saying, so there's a lot of things that we don't know. And so when I listen to so many of people who talk about money, they're not talking about the things that are can help you right now. How do you go from nothing to something? How do you go from no? When I started in business, after I got fired off that job, I had $7. I bought a dress, sold it for, bought two more, and was making in 1974 over 1,000 a week profit, which was like 5 or 10,000 now, maybe 20. You know, I thought I was rich. I was rich, right? So this learning how to pass property on and not when the lawyers are taking everything with probate. When Rosa Parks died, she didn't have any children, Denise.
Mm-hmm.
She had a bank account of over $500,000 from all her activities. She lived in Detroit. The judges and the probate people took every single dime, and that happens a lot. Probate, like a lot of law, is crooked as heck. Do you know how to buy a property without incurring any real estate transfer taxes, water certifications, and increasing property taxes when you buy it? I bought a $50,000 property from a millionaire one time. He didn't sell me the property. You know what he sold me, Denise?
What?
He had the property in a corporation. He just sold me the corporation. I gave
Mm.
him the $50,000. That means that the owner of the property never changed hands. It didn't have to be reported nowhere. There was no transfer taxes, no lawyers needed, no water certifications, no increase in value because now it's sold for more than it was originally was. And that's the simple stuff we have to do. All this is called asset protection, right? We need to learn the base. What's the sense does it make to spend your life working for them and then lose it to the tax man? Like we lose so many of our properties to people buying them for taxes. We lose so much to the banks. We lose. We got to learn how to keep what we worked for all our life, right? So, do you know how to keep a mortgage company from reporting to the credit bureau, even if you got late payments? You can send one letter to the credit bureau based on RESPA, the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, and they can never, if you send this letter to them every 2 or 3 months, they can never report to your credit, a bad credit on your credit, no matter how many months. Even if you lose it in foreclosure, they can never report it to credit. If they do, it costs them 3,000 a month. They got to pay you. But you do know have to know how to sue to get it. How do you get a repossession off your credit? I get so many people calling me about repossessions. I had a couple the other day I sat with, and they got a car. It's up for repossession because in Illinois, if you're 31 days behind, they can come get the car. I don't care how many years you paid on it. You paid on it for 5 years, and you miss 1 month and 1 day, they can repossess the car. Did you know that, Denise?
No, I didn't know that.
And that law has been going on a long time. So I've helped a lot of people with repossessions because once you study the Uniform Commercial Code, which is the system of law that's all over the world, they have uniform commercial code in every country, right? Then it covers every transaction that's securitized, meaning it's sold on the secondary market, meaning that paper was sold to other investors, right? Under Uniform Commercial Code, there's the thing called a commercially unreasonable sale. So if your car was worth 10,000, they sell it on auction. They may sell it for 5,000. They come after you for what's called a deficiency judgment. You ever heard that deficiency judgment? You still owe us, even though they gave the car away, right, for a lot less than it's worth. They still
Oh
had,
yeah, they can
and they
come
keep
back to
it
you for the difference.
absolutely, and then they keep it on your credit for 7 years again if you don't know how to get it off. So once
That
you
can
once
happen with a mortgage as well, right?
absolutely, absolutely. But there are ways around it. When you got to know, there's no lady told me when she said, "Well, I'm not interested in law." I said, "You may not be, but law is interested in you."
Mm-hmm.
And so what I have people do is file a good faith dispute, right, under the Uniform Commercial Code. And then even though they may say they owe 5,000, then you can send once you file a good faith dispute, it's valid. It's got to be a valid dispute why you don't feel you owe it, right? They sold it too less, they charged me too much interest, if the car was in an accident, whatever. Send them a check for $5, a money order, and put on the back, accepting of this constitutes payment in full of this account, right? And if they cash it, it's paid in full. I helped a lady pay off an entire $230,000 house like that. but you do have to know some things how to get around it because they control the money system, which is controlled by the judiciary. So many of the judges are crooked as heck. And so you got to know how to beat them at their own game. We'll talk about that a little bit later. How much time we got?
Oh, you got another almost 25 minutes.
Yeah, but I got another 400 questions on here. But this is but this is give people the whole point of this conversation is that we're not being taught in school, in church, in even a lot of books, and even in all the people who say they're experts in business and financial planners, they're not teaching this.
Do
And
they
if
know?
so,
Do they know this? Do they know this information?
no, they don't. Most people don't. Most lawyers don't
Yeah.
know the information. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
most lawyers don't. There are lawyers who specialize in consumer law, but there's probably only 1,000 of those in the entire country, and even those don't necessarily. They don't study the monetary system, and I know that for a fact because the one organization that lawyers go to called the National Consumer Law Center. I went to 13 annual conferences and attended over 400 seminars on all this kind of stuff for years. I did it for 13 years, right? And there were never more than a few hundred lawyers there from the entire country, right? And they never taught about monetary science, where money really comes from.
Hmm.
I received a from there's an organization, one of the largest social entrepreneurship organizations in the world called the Ashoka Foundation, and they award money and assistance to people who are doing entrepreneurial things. In 2005, I received a fellowship from them. But when I started talking about the money system, it scared them to death. They haven't talked to me. They said, "Oh no, he's going to the money system." What about your credit score? You know, you're not a credit score. Everything they digitized everything now. They digitize AI is just a digital thing, even though it can be very valuable. It's not actual thinking. It goes through language patterning and association. So don't be fooling to think that it's thinking. It doesn't have a mind to think. It doesn't have the creativity. It's just associating. But you can use it for a lot of things that can be helpful. But it's the same thing with credit scores. They're just digits. In a computer, they're turning you into a digit. And they're saying, well, you're 600, you're 500, you're this. So you got to learn to beat them at their own game. There's nothing fair about the credit system, right? Even if you never miss a payment, your credit score can go down because you applied for credit. You know that, Denise. Your credit your credit score can go down because you use your credit. Your credit score can go down because you don't use your credit. You see what I'm saying? Your credit,
Hmm.
your credit score down if you miss a payment. One listen, this is how unfair it is. Here, I got a good example for you. I hope your listeners really get this. You ever heard anybody that he's taking a test and getting 97% on it and they flunk? You ever heard anything like that? They got
Not
they got
really.
they got 97% right and they still flunk. You never heard a test that stringent, right?
Not really. Mm-mm.
That's how the credit system works. Think about it. Let's say today a person gets a car loan, a credit card, a house, and they pay every month on time for a year. And they do that for 10 years. That means they made 12 times 10. They made a three times 12 is 36, right? So they made, I think we're getting some interference there, right?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. So they made 36 on-time payments in a year. And then for 10 years they did that. So now they paid 360 on-time payments on their credit card, on their cars, and on the house. Never missed a payment. And then something happens in their life, right? And when something happens in their life, they miss three payments. We're getting a lot of interference, Denise. You can hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Oh, I'm getting a lot of interference. Anyway, so they missed just three payments. As soon as they miss those three payments on that car, whatever, the credit score tanks over 100 points. If it's a car, as I told you in Illinois, The repossession, the car probably already been repossessed if they didn't hide it. And the credit card, they missed 3 payments, is already, so their credit score has dropped. They flunked, even though they did 360 things right and three times nine things wrong. If you
So
divide nine,
what is it with this credit score? What is the mental and emotional, seems like a weapon, that they're a tool that they're using to control people. This whole
right,
thing about credit score, it's even increased. Used to be, I think, a 500 credit score was good. Now you got to have a 7 or 800, you know, credit score. So, what is it about this credit score thing?
it's every all of this is systemic stuff. What we have to realize when we come out the matrix that the educational system, the banking system, the military system, the financial system, all of this purpose of it is to control, own, manipulate, and work people and take what they have. That's the purpose of it. Hospital system, the medical system, it's all that, you know. And you see these helicopters on top of the hospital, they're not there because they earn risk and all that. They're mainly there so they can get them body parts that they snatching out of people and giving them to people who can pay for them. Body organ is one of the biggest things in the world, right? About organ donor, right? So they say once you realize that the systems are all created by psychopathic people, demons, right? And then when we realize that they're created by psychopathic demons, we shouldn't be surprised that psychopaths do psychopathic things. So taking advantage of people and taking their homes and throwing old ladies out the house because they didn't pay $100 in taxes and all that, and we stand by and let it happen. And it's getting worse because of the type of political climate we're in. But again, only because we're letting it. So the solution is not only just learning law and learning finance. The solution is to understand your spiritual power, right? When you understand your spiritual power, and I'm not talking about necessarily running the church, right? That's not necessarily, this is not taught in church, right? It's learning how to tap into your ancestral energy, the DNA of your ancestors, who from another realm can not only protect you and guide you, so they teach people in church, they tell them, oh, don't talk to unfamiliar spirits. Well, I mean, don't talk to familiar spirits. Well, what kind of spirits should I be talking to? Just the ones I don't know? My mama is now, she died and now I can't talk to her no more. Nobody actually dies, right? Our body dies. That energy is there. Anybody who ever lived, you can talk to them. You can write a letter to your great, 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 great so-called unborn grandchildren. They'll get the letter right now. So this is getting into the metaphysical, occult nature of who we are and what we are. We've always existed. We'll always exist. So certainly with that kind of power that we can tap into, we have the power to change the energy around these little money things. But if we don't use our power and we believe that money is the issue, then that's what nobody really has money problems in and of itself. All problems are from spiritual, lack of community, lack of knowledge, lack of awareness. And when you tap into that, most talented people, and most people are brilliant, are spending too much time alone, not in the company, not joining organizations where they're part of something where they're growing every minute, right? Most people who've been on their phone for 35 minutes have learned more about finance than they've learned their entire life. And we could go on for hours just teaching about things that they need to know, right? Let's do a couple more questions.
And let me say a comment here based on what you make a comment based on what you're saying. This constant financial pressure and manipulation is really limiting our ability to imagine, to create,
Absolutely.
to organize. It's having an effect on individuals and groups of people in that manner.
Yes, that you hit the nail on the head. We didn't come here for all this. We didn't come here to work jobs, do all that. We're here for one main reason. That's to live our life purpose, and to realize that we are gods on this earth. That we're not limited by anything. We don't have five senses. We have hundreds of senses, but we've been so successfully programmed into being regular and thinking that we're just a human and that bullets can kill us and this can do this to us, whatever. You know what I'm saying? All this stuff, you can never die. This body can die. And so we're used controlled by fear and fear of lack of money and fear of this. The more you tap into, I told my son, because he was a writer, he was spending a lot of time with money. My oldest son focused on, I gotta make money, make money. I said, what if you spent every day, all day, becoming 10 times wiser? What if you spent every day becoming 10 times more healthy? What if you spend every day becoming 10 times better looking, 10 times stronger, 10 times everything? If you 10 times everything, the whole world is going to come to you looking for how you got it. You don't have to chase money. Money is just, if somebody give you $10 million, right? Put it in a steel case that's airtight, hermetically sealed, and you leave town and don't touch it, you come back, that money is still gonna be sitting there because money don't have no power of its own, right? It's just the pieces of paper or a coin, or now just digits in a computer. That's all it is. You know, is it they're playing with them. We got to stop calling these people elites and
Hmm.
and colonists and white supremacists. They're not supreme. Why would you call somebody supreme? You see what I'm saying? That's got their foot on your neck. Why would you call them elite? You call them what they are. They're degenerates, right? They're and that's what it is. It's not elite. Nothing. Elite means the best, don't it? Right. So why would you call them elite? When you call them white supremacists, and they like, right, we are supreme. They told us we are. You see what I'm saying? So we know that the melanin in our bodies is an actual computer that can use the sun itself to elevate the ions of the universe, and through our thoughts, magnify and synchronistically bring to us anything that we need. Anything we need. We can create out of all kind of stuff, but we can't do it if we focus on just running after the idea of money, right? So there's nothing wrong with having money, but given this adverse time to it and not developing self, right? Many people my age are still running around spending time. How much money can they make? I'm gonna make some money. Even the ones who don't need money, it's just like they like on automatic, making some money, make some money, not doing anything with it, right? And don't have anything to do with it of real value, right? How many houses do you really need to live in? How many cars do you really need to drive? You know, you can get whatever you want, but if it's taking you away from who you are and what you came here to do, there's a problem. And that problem, when your own soul will cause you to have illnesses and issues so that you can come back to the center of what you are and who you are, right? We talked about trust. When you learn how to do a trust, you are going to be protected from anybody who's trying to take anything from you. Just learning how to do a simple trust. You know how long it takes to draw up a trust?
How long?
Less than 5 minutes. And you know where you have to file that trust at?
Tell us where.
Nowhere. That you never have to file it. You nobody knows what's in it, but it controls everything because you got to trust. You just got to learn how to sign for your trust and not give out the information inside the trust. It could be the Larry Cherry Family Trust, or even not even your name on it, just the idea. I set up a one for a guy today. What did he call it? Well, I'm not giving out his name, but he called it something. Organization he believes in trust, right? A lot of our money goes and our time and our health and our knowledge and our wisdom goes because we keep going to doctors who are steady taking away our knowledge and our wisdom and our power and making us weaker and causing our blood to flow slower and causing us to have all kind of impurities and killing us off slowly but surely. And then we go to funerals, Denise, and say, yeah, the Lord called Aunt Mary home. No. And then if you know anything about natural health, you know that they were killed by the medicine that the doctor gave. You know, if you took your car to a mechanic and it's running poorly, and when you got it back, it was running more poorly. You call them back, and then you think it is running even worse, and then even worse, but you keep going back. So we give more credit. We take care of our cars better than we take care of our bodies because we keep letting so-called authorities in white coats, right? You could put on a white lab coat and a name tag and a clipboard and just go door to door. People let you in, give you all the information, everything, because we're programmed. That's called an archetype, right? It's all mind. See, everything here is based on mind control. And so the money system itself is just a mind control mechanism. If you look on a dollar bill, all those are occult symbols, the eye and the pyramid, all these things, all these systems are based on using occult magic, right? Now, if you're not studying magic and studying the system they use to use magic to control you with, then you probably are not doing well as you could. And people get scared with the word magic. Well, let's say miracles, because again, our religions have been programmed to teach us there's something wrong with having power. There's
Yeah.
something wrong with you being a God, even though in the Bible, Jesus himself, he said, he said, greater things than I you will do. You see, people don't realize Jesus wasn't a Christian. That was just what they said his last name was. That wasn't even his first name because he was a Hebrew. There's no J in Hebrew. So once you realize that everything, once you can humble yourself and realize that almost everything you were taught in school is a big fat lie and that it was taught for a purpose of it, then you can wake up to wisdom. But until we humble ourselves and realize that I don't care how many degrees I got, I've been lied to. Most of it is a lie. If I went to school for a doctor, most of it's a lie. I don't know how to take care of people's health and make them get well. So I'm a liar. I've been taught to lie. I've been taught to pretend, right? If I'm an engineer, but I don't know how to wire my house or take wires off my house and get energy from the ground, then I've been lied to, right? If I'm a lawyer and I don't really know how to protect people from crooked judges and the crooked system, and I don't really know how to save people from a crooked mortgage company, I don't really know how to stop people from taking the IRS from taking people's taxes that they work for, then maybe I've been lied to. Maybe they didn't really teach me what I needed to know to protect the people that I came here to protect. But we've
Let me
been
let me ask you let me ask you this. What would a fair mortgage and tax system look like? Or what should it look like?
no interest, no interest. Interest is from ancient times. Interest was only used in the biblical times to charge people who did something to you so much that you would kill them. Instead of killing them, you would charge them interest. So what is interest really? It's a even in the biblical time they show Jesus threw out the money changers and all that.
Hmm.
Interest, they always talk about the national debt. It's just interest, just money multiplying, right? You use compound interest. Interest is the game that keeps people constantly in hock, constant hock. When you buy a house for $100,000 today and put it on a 30-year mortgage at 7% interest, by the time you paid off that house in 30 years, you would have paid almost $300,000 for that house. Interest.
So
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 that's
what do you think about, you get these advertisements all the time about getting zero interest credit cards and transfer your debt over to this credit card and you have 0% interest. Usually it's 18 months, it might be 12 months, 18 months. I think Wells Fargo just came out with a 21 month.
so if you can use those things, but it's still a trick to get you because they know you're not going to pay it off in 21 months. If you take out $1,000 loan on a credit card and you pay the minimum payment, it would take you 11 years to pay off that $1,000 because of interest. If you can get a zero interest card, of course that's better. But they don't.
But
That's only for
they're usually asking you to transfer debt from another card over to that card. That's usually what they're asking you to do.
But the game is they know you're not going to pay it off. So that's just a lost leader. They say, okay, we're not going to take no interest right now, but as soon as it's up, you're going to be paying us 15, 20, 30% interest. You see it's up. And so they still going to get their money because remember, banks don't actually loan money. I don't know if people realize that. Banks don't loan. Here's what actually happens at a closing, right? You've been in a lot of real estate closings. You buy the, you sign a contract, you give it to the buyer. The seller. The seller approves it. The seller agrees, and the bank agrees to give you a loan. So when you're sitting at the closing, there's a bunch of papers sitting there that the buyer has to sign. A couple for the seller, but mostly the buyer. They fax or email those papers to the lender. The lender checks to make sure thing is signed, and they wire money. Remember, those are digits in the computer. It's not actual money. They wire money to the closer, and the closer cuts the checks, and the seller gets a big check. Let's say it's a $200,000 house, and he or she deposits that into their bank account. They take a picture of it. They send it to the Federal Reserve Clearinghouse, and then that money, that bank, the Federal Reserve credits one bank and debits another bank. There's no money changing hands. It's a game. It's If you did it, that would be called check kiting, and you go to federal prison for it. Look up check kiting. You have your audience look that up and understand what that is. That's This whole money system is a fraud. They don't have any money. It's just that they have the idea of being to say they have money, and they have digits in the computer. If you make it up some money and try to copy their money, they say you counterfeit it, right? But what they're making up is called fiat money because there's nothing backing it up. Not gold. There's no gold in Fort Knox. So if they had gold, tons and tons of gold in Fort Knox, they would, how people, they would have pictures of it and showing you, "Ooh, look at all this gold we got." They would be charging you to come see the gold. You know. So they ain't had no gold. It's Fort. Now we call it Fort Knox, not Fort Knox, right? So once you realize that it's all a game, and then here's the thing that people have to do in order to be able to think. My mind works like this is because one reason my father taught me, he said, don't ever let nobody control your mind, because then they'll have two minds, and you won't have none at all. We have got to get the fluoride out of our system. Everybody's mind can come online and develop superpowers and senses, all kind of stuff. They would just get the fluoride out of the system. You need to use boron, boron, and start putting that in your bath water, and vitamin C in the bath water. Get rid of chlorine, right? Because you were drinking and all this stuff with fluoride, and it's shutting our spiritual senses down. You have a pineal gland in your brain that covers all your spiritual senses, your ability to think deep, see deep, hear deep. We all should know how to read minds and listen to what people are not saying, and be able to communicate with somebody in another country without a telephone and all that. These are just normal gifts that animals do all the time. Every animal around your house and the trees know who you are, what you do, how you exist, how you treat them. You may not be paying attention, but they're always paying attention because they're
And I
using.
think, Larry, I think people have those abilities, but they're not cultivated.
Right.
They're suppressed, and they started at a very young age.
Yeah, they go to school. And that in the school, you're taught to overuse your left brain. That's why they got you standardized tests. That's why in the black community, they got music programs that know music, because music alone can make you a genius, if you're doing it at the right frequency. And even that. So the type of whatever demons are that created all these systems, we don't have to acquiesce to it. And they know how powerful we are. That's why they spend 24/7 trying to keep you from understanding who you are. Right? They're
So,
telling you.
question, because we're getting close here to the top of the hour. What
Yes.
mindset shifts would you say should people have about money and debt?
The main thing is to realize that they are the money, and that there's many forms of money, and that they can create money, and they develop relationship. All you need to exist is some food, not near as much as we eat, right? Clothing, not near as much as we buy. A place to live, a way to communicate, and a way to get around. Everything else is extra. So if you imagine how different your life would be if you learn how to get a home or a place to live without having to pay rent and mortgages, and you know how to get a car without a car note, and you learn how to use uh, hydrogen to run your car, and where you don't have to buy gas, and you would have time to learn all these things if we want to spend so time running after the idea of money, right?
Mhm.
So the mindset to have is to free your mind and your time. Your greatest investment is your time, to focus on wisdom and knowledge and the right connections. Then you find there's a way to do everything without having to spend. Yeah, I mean, even if you go get a job making $40 an hour, they say, okay, we're going to pay you $40 an hour, right? And then for 40 hours, you're not working 40 hours. You got to get ready for work. You got to get to work. You got to leave work. You got to wind down from that. So you're really working 12 hours. So you're really making $30 an hour. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's only 168 hours in a whole week. Focus on life purpose, developing your intuition, open your mind, free your body, clean your livers out, get rid of the fluoride and chlorine in your system and all the other heavy metals. Find out how to do that, and you're gonna see. Stay close to nature, right? Uh, Put these phones down for a minute. Clear your house of EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. There's a lot of things to do, and you got time to do it when you're not spending all this time chasing the idea of money.
So how can people consult with you, Larry?
You mean the number I can reach that is 773-306-3377. And the first question I ask anybody when they call me, what is your life purpose? If they don't know it, then we find that out within the next 2 minutes. Because everything should be focused from your purpose. So that's 773-306-3377. Denise, you're doing a wonderful job educating the community. I've known you for years, and your heart is in it. You're not even making money doing this. You just giving. You are a great spirit from many thousands of years ago, and maybe you should do some past life reading to find out.
Well, thank you, Larry. Myself and my two board members, Doris Lewis and Harvey Yarbrough, with their support and
Right.
support of our website manager, Brian Mullen. We're all in here working together, and I appreciate their support, and I appreciate your support and your compliments and the work that you're doing in the community,
Right.
because I know you've been working in the community for a long time yourself. So
Yes, my business has always been just a front to wake people up.
yes. Well, thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
I hope you have learned something tonight. It's been very interesting conversation, and definitely we need to think about what we're doing and how we're spending our time every day, and what's important and what's not important. Uh, but as we say every weekend, we do want you to support our Black businesses. And thank you for coming.
Have a great day, everybody.